Hi, volleyball fans, and welcome back to Volley Talk, the podcast created for volleyball lovers who want to dig deep into what is going on in NCAA and international volleyball. I'm your host, Sarah Pavin. I'm an Olympian, beach volleyball world champion, former Nebraska Cornhusker, and longtime pro, both indoor and on the beach.
And I'm Adam Schultz, former indoor player, international volleyball coach, and the show's resident stat guy.
As promised last week, this episode is going to focus predominantly on the NCAA. We know you NCAA fans have been waiting for this transition to happen. So international season's over, pro leagues overseas are still in preseason or are just starting up. So we're going to be discussing what has happened during the college preseason and how conference play has started, do a bit of a conference breakdown prediction session. You know we love that stuff. We have a special guest joining us this episode to break things down and forecast what the rest of the season will look like that I know listeners will be excited about.
By popular demand.
By popular demand, okay? Can you guess who it is? You're probably right. Okay, let's get started. All right, our highlights for the week. We understand that the rankings probably have changed since this has come out, but we'll keep you posted anyway. So last week, Texas A&M went up to 9 from 13. Baylor went up to 15 from 20. Then we saw BYU take a dip down to 19 from 14 and Florida go down to 23 from 19. Obviously, a lot has happened since then, so we're going to see more changes, but those were the biggest movers last week. We also had some surprising things happen in gameplay. We had number 10 Minnesota lose to Michigan in 4. We had
That was a little shocking.
18 Kansas beat Baylor in 5. And then West Virginia, who is unranked, beat number 19 BYU in 5.
And BYU is going to keep dropping.
BYU is going to keep plummeting. So if you haven't guessed it yet, the special guest is Paul. He is back again.
By popular demand.
By popular demand.
Although I will say you took a little bit of flack for your USA over Turkey pick, but his ego has recovered. He's back, and he's willing to engage with us again.
So, yeah, going back to Purdue reverse sweeping UCLA. Am I surprised that they beat them? No. Am I surprised, however, that UCLA gave up 3 match points in set 3? 4 match points, and then proceeded to just lose the rest? That's unfortunate.
I think it pays to mention that I think we both thought Purdue was not going to be very good this year. They lost 5 players, including both their middles and both their very good left sides in Eva Hudson and Chicoine to other programs. I think Coach Shondell, from what I heard, was on the verge of quitting after those things happened because they had such a good program, and I just didn't expect them to be very good after being decimated by the transfer portal. So to see them in this match, which we'll talk about, it's a feel-good story for Purdue. A bounce back from devastating losses.
I also expected them to be pretty bad this year, not going to lie. And when they had the 13 ranking, I was like, okay, what is this about? The one attacker, Wallard, went off.
And she played well in both matches against UCLA and USC, in which they won both those games. And she's going to be a really good player for them.
What are your takes on that match?
Did
you watch that match?
I did watch the match. I actually watched both matches. Am I surprised? I can't really say I'm surprised. I look at Purdue and I look at UCLA and I look at USC. Same as I watch so many other teams. Everybody seems the same to me right now. I don't know if we're just being spoiled when we watch a full roster that can play, and everybody has pieces. USC seemed to me to be very physical.
Especially
It's
in the middle.
just, they're insane in the middle. But nobody seems to have a whole package except the odd team, maybe Texas and Nebraska for sure. You're looking at this thinking, what has happened over the course of a year? Has the fact that the portal has come into play and nobody can build a program anymore and a cohesive unit starting to hurt? And it almost seems like that's what's starting to happen right now.
Well, okay, we can add in Indiana into this discussion because Indiana came to LA and they beat UCLA and USC as well.
I have a thought, and I want to get both of your takes on this. I'm starting to see a pattern with UCLA where they'll win the first set, they'll win the first two sets, and then they lose matches. If you listen to the broadcast with Purdue and UCLA, UCLA had a very specific game plan to start. They wanted to hit the ball down the line and they wanted to run the middle, which they did very effectively to the tune of having 4 match points in the third set. Now, adjustments were made by Purdue. I think Coach Shondell does an amazing job with his team. To see their defensive game plan, to see the adjustments they make. Purdue, while they don't have any studs, is a well-oiled machine. They understand their defensive responsibilities. They're in the right place. They dig a ton of balls. They're aggressive in transition. I'm starting to see UCLA have good game plans for the first part of matches and then not making adjustments after that.
No, but like that's my question. Is that a Purdue thing? Was Purdue that good, or did UCLA just completely vacate what had been working for them? Who counteracted or who changed first?
Shondell, their team changed, and UCLA didn't match them. And I think, in my mind, Purdue outcoached UCLA in that match. So UCLA won the first set against Indiana and then lost 3 straight. And now I didn't watch that match, but I'm starting to see a pattern where I think UCLA has good game plans to start and they're not making in-match adjustments.
I would tend to agree with you. You know, I have a lot of respect for what Shondell is doing. And yes, it was mentioned on the broadcast that he considered stepping away from coaching after losing the players he lost, but then gave himself a little time and said, no, now's not the time. And he came back. He does a great job, prepares his teams very, very well. You watch what happened yesterday and against USC, and they're not spectacular. That's the thing. They're not spectacular. There's Woolner's good, or Wooler, I guess her name is. She's really good. I don't see them getting to a Final Four, or even maybe a Final 8. I don't think
No.
so. I don't see it. But, you know, are they going to compete for third, fourth, fifth place in the Big Ten? I think so.
I don't think anybody's really in the discussion for winning, except maybe 4 teams. This year, I feel in particular, you've got like a very small group that can even be in the discussion, and then the rest are just there. You know what I mean?
One thing I saw from Purdue that I wanted to highlight watching this match in terms of the coaching, which we want to talk about, is so their right side, Purdue, I believe her name is Grace Haney. I don't love her arm swing. She doesn't get her elbow back. She holds her elbow in front of her, and she doesn't have a full swing. And I'm 100% positive that they've tried to change her arm swing at some point, but it's just not happening. Somebody has tried to change her. It happens all the time. So what do? They run her a super fast flat ball because her hand is already there, and she just moves the ball around and scores. And to me, that's a prime example of a coach looking at the athletes they have and saying, okay, here's the adjustment we're going to make to take advantage of the things, and in this case it's, in my opinion, a deficiency, and we're going to turn it into a strength. Watching Purdue play like that, you can just see Shondell's hand in all of those decisions and what they do, and I was super impressed to watch them play this weekend, and I wanted to say that.
And I agree with you, Adam. I just look at that's a sign of a really good coach, by the way, is that some coaches come into things looking at this is what I run and this is what I'm going to do, and it doesn't matter. We're gonna do this, and it's impossible. And I think Dave is looking at his athletes and understands what their strengths and weaknesses are, and coaches to those strengths and weaknesses. And I think that's just a sign of a really good coach doing the best he can to get the most that he can out of his athletes, and good for him.
So what are we thinking about the Indiana situation here? Because I don't think anybody would have predicted that Indiana is going to come to LA and beat both of these teams.
Historically, no, not a chance. When you look at UCLA and USC, you're talking about the Blue Bloods, right?
Back in my era, they were outstanding. In recent years, like not so much, but still, they're ranked 17 and 24 in the country.
Well, right now they are.
Well,
We'll see how long that lasts.
not for long.
Well, UCLA is heading towards not making the tournament for the third straight year.
I don't know if I'd go that far, Adam. I still think they're in that number that's 64. I think they can hang on to that only because I don't think the rest of the league is so powerful that they're going to drop that far, really.
Because I agree with you. I think a lot of teams are missing pieces. When you have teams that don't have studs and they're incomplete, it comes down to coaching. It comes down to execution. It comes down to the details. And so far, I haven't seen that from UCLA. They've blown leads. You can't have 4 match points against a conference rival and blow that match in a reverse sweep. And then you can't come in and, I mean, kudos to Indiana,
Well, and then
but you
lose
can't
to
lose that match.
unranked Indiana.
At home, no less.
I remember back in August when I was on the first time, Sarah specifically asked you and I a question. You don't have UCLA in the equation? And both of us said, nah, no, not at all. And guess what? We were right on that one because I don't see them being in the equation either. Can they
Preseason
make the
Big Ten
tournament?
number
Yes.
4.
I'm curious to see what happens with USC because they have outstandingly physical middles. I think there's a ton of potential there. Their outsides are also incredibly physical, but they're one-dimensional now. They don't do anything other than hit hard right in front of them. So I'm curious to see if they can turn that program around because they do have athletes, but they need some volleyball work.
And hence, that's where you had Dave Shondell serving the ball short to
Yep.
make the middle, occupy the middle. I thought, brilliant. Just
Yeah.
brilliant. No, it's not brilliant, but he knew exactly what he wanted to do, and they did it.
Him as a coach had an outstanding weekend in California.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The Indiana team showed up. They're like, hello, California. See you later. The last highlight we wanted to touch on, and I'm not sure I'd call it a highlight so much as
A beatdown.
interest story, was the absolute beatdown we saw between Nebraska and Penn State. Set 1 was 25-6, and then it was 15-13.
So before we talk about the match, I'm curious what everybody's expectation going in was. What did you think was going to happen?
I thought Nebraska in 3, but I didn't think they would do what they did.
You
I
didn't predict
thought
single
that-
digits?
Oh no. No. I thought, maybe 18, 20, 20, something like that. I thought that Kennedy Martin would definitely hit probably the 20 kill mark because they would set her enough to get that. After I looked at it, I thought it's obvious Nebraska came into that match and had on their mind the loss at the NCAA championship and were out to prove to everybody that not this time. And boy, did they ever.
I had the same thought. I thought it was going to be 3 straight, but similar to you, I thought it was going to be like 18, 20, somewhat respectable. 6. That's tough to do.
Well, and at Penn State. It's not like they went to Nebraska and got 6. You got 6 at home in your own barn.
That's embarrassing.
I mean,
Like, you have to try to only score 6 points. Do you know what I mean?
especially when you have arguably the best or second best point scorer in the NCAA on your team.
Agreed. There's a reason Penn State was 7-5 coming into that match, obviously. They're relying on one horse right now. Let's face it. They're relying on Kennedy Martin to do everything and score as many points as she possibly can. And I think she's doing a great job, and she's trying to pull this team.
Oh, she's doing outstanding.
But I just don't see the others. I think Selman, I expected more.
Me too.
I really did. I expected far more from her, and I don't see it happening. The other left side, I think at
Jurevicius?
some point Schumacher's going to make a decision about whether she's going to go with Ewing or stick with Jurevicius there.
Jurevicius.
The future is Ewing, I think, but right now she was overmatched. She was 0 for 5 in the match.
I expected Selman to develop a little bit. Like, at
Yeah.
Ohio State, you saw that she had potential, but she wasn't, like, great by any means, and I expected to see her develop a little bit more in the off season. She's been a huge disappointment for me. But also, like, my question for you guys is, even with Izzy Stark, do you think this Penn State team is composed in a way to have had success?
I'm going to answer it this way. Izzy Stark doesn't pass the volleyball.
Yep.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was like, Okay, Penn State fans at the beginning of the season were talking about how good Penn State was looking. They were so excited for the season, blah, blah, blah. That's great. You lost arguably your best player in Izzy Stark. Granted, she's not a point scorer, whatever. But, like, would things be different with her there still? Like, I don't know.
Well, I think we all thought Emmy Selman was going to turn into something. I was very high on her last year. I thought she was outstanding at Ohio State. I thought, man, the future is bright for this kid. She's going to be fantastic. I personally think she's had a regression at Penn State from what she showed at Ohio State.
Like, she had a couple really good matches at Ohio State. It's not like she was, like, doing anything wild.
But I haven't seen any of those flashes here. Like, I haven't seen her put together anything.
And I think all of us talk often about the same thing, and it's basically you have to be able to run some middle to get the rest of the offense going.
We love
And
a
their
middle.
passing is so poor that they can't run the middle, and when they can run the middle, they actually do okay. But it's just not happening enough for them to be able to sustain. So basically now they're sitting on Kennedy Martin and go ahead and do it. And you're not going to beat Nebraska with one player scoring points. You're just not going to do it.
But what was your plan?
Well,
Because,
I think
like,
Juravicius showed some great character in the run last season.
no,
I think
but here's but Kennedy Martin signed later. Like, Emmy Selman signed with Penn State right when the portal opened last year. Kennedy Martin was way after that. I feel like the original plan was to have Juravicius play the right side. Who the heck were you planning on having on the left?
well, whoever it was should show up there soon because they need to do something.
What was your plan here?
I don't remember two teams of that historic quality, one team just getting absolutely decimated like that. I've never seen that amongst
Well,
teams like
here's
that.
another question that I was asked. Has it ever happened in NCAA that a team who wins the championship doesn't make the tournament the next year? Has that ever happened? I reached out to Avid Volley, our source for a lot of information. Even they didn't know.
I bet that is highly unlikely. Okay, so who do you think has a better chance of making the tournament, UCLA or Penn State?
Oh, didn't Penn State lose to UCLA?
They did. Kennedy Martin had 35 kills in that match, I believe.
Well, right now it comes down to, I think UCLA probably has a better chance right now because Penn State is falling like a stone. I just looked at it a few minutes ago and Penn State was beating Maryland 2-0. So it looks like they're going to move on to win that one. But at some point you got to beat somebody.
The fact that we're happy that Penn State is up 2-0 on Maryland, who would have thought that would have been a thing?
That was wild. Penn State can come out and say, hey, we lost our season because Izzy Stark screwed us or left. Take your pick about how you want to word that. But I think you're right, Sarah. I think they were going to be in trouble on the left side regardless of whether Izzy was here. Mendelson can't get the ball. You have one person who's being set, who's expected to carry all of the load. And even defensively, they don't look very good. Like, they are disjointed. And it's actually a dichotomy for me. You have Penn State loses their player, and they seem like they're falling apart. They're not paying attention to the details. Purdue loses a whole bunch of their players, and they seem to have rallied around that, and they're doing the best they can with the athletes they have, and they're disciplined, and they're pushing teams. I mean, you have a choice in how you respond to these situations. And I understand it's not quite the same, but I think the theory and the principle of that applies.
So here's a question that was submitted about this. As coaches and former player, what would your messaging be to the coaching staff or players on Penn State in how to navigate this situation with losing Stark? If you were in their shoes as coaches, what would your approach be?
I can speak for me personally. After she left, you look at the team and you say teams are about the next man up mentality. Is this great? No, but we still have one of the best players in the country. We are still a storied program. The expectation
We're still reigning national champions.
Yeah, the expectation does not change. We take care of our details and we have to go out and play. You know what? Maybe you sulk about it for a week and then you get back to work. The attitude of the coaching staff and the head coach, I actually didn't love her response to the question. It was cold, and I understand the emotion behind that, but you have to say that's her choice. This is our program. We're Penn State. We're going to keep going. Like, that's at least the message that for me has to come out.
That's their whole slogan.
Exactly.
We are.
That's the messaging that I would give as a coach, and then it's business as usual. Your preparation stays the same, your attitude stays the same, your expectations stay the same. They're
You
underperforming,
know,
in my opinion.
from my point of view, I think everybody's faced at some point that they're going to lose somebody important, either through injury or something else. Something's going to happen. And you have to have a look at your team and decide, what do I have to do to give us the best opportunity to win? And right now with Penn State, yes, we have Kennedy Martin. Great. We have some middles. Great. What do we have to do and put on the floor to make sure that we get what we need out of this right now? Is non-passing left sides an answer? No. Now the NCAA has enough subs that you can put defensive specialists in to bolster that passing as long as you have them on your roster. I don't know if they have that on their roster, but if you don't, shame on you because you have that many
Well,
subs that you can use.
they have Grimes. They've got the other girl who comes in to serve all the time. They've got a couple. They're not like a Nebraska DS heavy roster, but
But what they have has to be better than the passing they're getting currently.
It's really no different than talking like to, I'm going to be honest with you, talking today like with 14-year-old girls and saying, we have to be the best at what we can do. If we can do that, we'll have success. Plain and simple.
and then on the player's perspective, it's like, yeah, I can understand you might feel betrayed. You might feel upset. Completely understandable. But it's like, how are you going to approach? You still have the opportunity to get better every day. You have to have the pride of being like, no, we are the reigning national champions. We are going to find a way. I think it's easy to kind of get wrapped up in things that happen to you instead of what am I going to do to make a change and make a difference? I thought that question was interesting.
I'm hoping that Schumacher-Colley looks at this and says, okay, guys, let's rally the troops here and figure out. We're at a position now that decisions are going to be made to give us the best chance to win. Everybody has to buy into this, and you have to put the team first. And whatever we have to do, we're going to do. You don't discount the whole season because you got blown out by Nebraska. You can get past that. But what do you do now? That's the key. What do you do now?
My last question about this before we get into the NCAA conference breakdown is, will Kennedy Martin transfer again? Or do you think she'll stick it out at Penn State? And if she does transfer, somebody sent in a question, could you see her going to Nebraska?
Yes.
Which part? Yes, transferring, and yes to Nebraska?
I believe, and I said this yesterday to my wife, and we were talking about this, and I said, if this does not improve and something doesn't walk in, she will pursue Nebraska and they will take her.
When does Olivia Babcock graduate?
They're the same age. They're both juniors.
Interesting. I think she will leave. I was thinking Kentucky over Nebraska purely because the Italian kid is finding her legs. She's starting to play better. Rightly or wrongly, I think Danny has a little bit of loyalty as a coach, and I also think that
you can never, I'm sorry, that is never a bad thing. I don't think.
No, I'm not saying that as a bad thing.
You said rightly or wrong. I just wanted to say, in my perspective, having that loyalty is never a bad thing.
But you also have her for 4 years.
Yeah.
If you burn that bridge and bring somebody in for 1 year, I don't think it's a good long-term play for the program. Now, if it wins you a national championship, maybe, but I'm curious.
At what cost?
Yeah, I'm curious to see how good she is by the end of the season because I think her and Bergen, I think she's finding her set. I think she played better against Penn State. I'm just not sure. There'll be a difference, but I'm not sure how much of a difference there will be, and I think that she could make a better difference at Kentucky.
Interesting.
Yeah, you make a good point there, actually.
Originally, when all this happened, I was like, no, she's not going to transfer because, I mean, I know it happens and I know that people do jump around. She doesn't strike me as the type of person that would transfer again. But again, do I know her? Absolutely not. I don't know. I had that feeling. But seeing this dumpster fire that this season has become, like, it's hard to say. I don't know. I posted a poll on Instagram yesterday, and the majority of people said she would transfer again.
Well, let's see how the season ends. I think that'll be the key to this whole thing. How does this end?
And who comes in? right? Like they're clearly gonna go to the portal. If they get one more left side and a half decent setter, they're gonna be a good team again.
All right, that was our NCAA recap of the week. A couple very surprising things happening, but as I said, the rankings are for sure going to be flipping around like crazy this week, so I'm excited to see what happens moving forward.
We finished non-conference play. We're a week behind actual conference play because of men's world championships, but I wanted to take a look at the top 4 conferences. I wanted to talk about some of the teams that will be contending for the top of those conferences. Are we surprised? What did we think of their non-conference play? And where do we see them going for the rest of the season? So we're going to start with the SEC. Paul, give me your top 4 or 5 teams in an order, and then give me your dark horse team for that division.
My top 3 are Texas, Kentucky, and Texas A&M in that order. If I was to pick another team, possibly, right now I'm leaning toward Tennessee.
Ooh, not a team we've talked about very often.
I look at Tennessee, outstanding. I can't say they're outstanding, but they lost to Purdue 3-1. I don't know if that's a great loss, maybe at the time, but I just don't see the overall strength in the SEC to think that anybody's going to be any better. Florida may rally eventually.
What about Missouri?
Missouri's lost a lot of matches.
They have, for some reason, they always hang around to me. I feel like they're always just like around.
Yeah, they do hang around. You're right. Will they make any noise? No.
Well, they don't.
And
They fit
be
into that group of teams that are decent but don't have a star. They're good defensively. They serve tough. They're a gritty team, but they can't score.
There's a lot of those, and that's another one. So I don't look at Missouri as really making any noise at all, to be honest with you. I just look at this thing and think it's pretty obvious that there's 3 teams that are just better than everybody else.
What are your teams?
I really like Texas. I think they're doing a good job. They've had their young players step up. They've gelled well. So I think they're going to be at the top. I agree. Kentucky is going to be number 2. I also agree. I thought Texas A&M at the beginning of the season, but they have not looked good recently. They have a couple losses. They look disjointed. They haven't been able to find any defensive rhythm. While they're relatively big, it's not clicking yet. So I'm curious to see if they can get it on the rails. I really like their coach. I think he does a good job, but this is potentially another situation where, he's coached internationally. He has a ton of experience. I'm wondering if they're trying to do a little bit too much with the athletes that they have, but I think they will finish 3rd just because they're well prepared, they're big, and the rest of the conference isn't super strong. I'm a little surprised at Florida. I thought they would be better, but I think they still have a shot to finish 4th in that conference, and I think Missouri will finish 5th.
I'm with you guys on the top 2. Texas, Kentucky. I haven't loved watching Texas A&M. It's a similar situation to what we're seeing from Penn State. You're riding the Lednicki train as far as she'll take you. Their left sides do not impress me at all. Cossack Paula, she's a really good blocker. I think they're very one-dimensional. So I'm going to take a flyer here, and I'm going to put Florida at number 3.
Okay, I'm just going to say something because it's really important as we move on in this. What we're seeing here with Texas and Kentucky, there's other conferences that have the same issue. There's 2 powerhouse teams and then the cast of others. And you can flip a coin and you don't know what's going to happen. And this is what's happening here. Adam asked for 3. I gave 3. And I think for me, Texas A&M, not for you, but there's 2. And then the others.
Exactly. And I think you're seeing, I hate to say it, but you're seeing with like the NIL and stuff, it's creating more separation than parity. And I think With the transfer portal, with NIL, I think some discussion was around more teams have the opportunity to be good. It's going in the opposite direction. We're seeing just the cream rise to the top and everybody else is just in their own little mix.
Well, there's good competition from 3 to 10.
Yeah, so preseason should not be more exciting than conference play. It shouldn't be. The majority of your season is spent in conference. Did we peak like it's September 1st?
I've said that all along about this portal. My whole take on the portal was everybody thought there's going to be a little more parity. Not a chance. You're going to have a Marquette, for instance, take this young kid that nobody wanted out of high school and develop her into something that turns into something special by her sophomore year. And that person's leaving Marquette, not for a worse team. They're going to get to Nebraska or Wisconsin or one of those.
Well, look at Ramsey
because
Gary
now-
for Texas. Ramsey Gary played for Indiana, and now she's playing for Texas. Like, are you kidding me? And I'm sorry, but like this increased scholarship limit, while I think it's great, it just allows the really good teams to get more players from everybody else. And the NIL is letting the really good teams find loopholes to be able to pay the difference for other. Like, it's wild to me.
Absolutely. This doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Saw this coming.
Well, Danny Busboom-Kelly earlier, a few weeks ago, came out and said that she thinks that the SEC could be stronger than the Big Ten. Do we agree with this statement? After everything we just said about how there's 2 really good teams, 3 1Bs, as Adam likes to call them, and then everyone else.
It's a battle.
You think that they're similar strength of conferences?
I think from top to bottom, I still think the Big Ten, but if you're looking at the top 5 or 6, if they had a similar type of thing, a SEC versus
Big Ten
Big
challenge.
Ten, I think you'd see a lot more parity than you'd think there.
Okay, let's go to the Big Ten. Let's pick our top. Give me your top 5 in the Big Ten, and then we'll
Big
compare
10?
a couple of those.
Top 5. Oof.
Yeah, we'll make it interesting.
5. Okay, sure. Nebraska, Wisconsin, and it's funny because I have a bunch of them written down here. Then I have take your pick of 3, 4, 5 here. Purdue, Minnesota, Indiana.
You have Indiana.
Yeah, maybe Illinois, maybe. That's what I have right now. I don't see Penn State in this equation.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Out of Indiana, Purdue, and Illinois, which of those teams beats Texas A&M?
Purdue, maybe.
Purdue.
I think it would be a decent match.
Yeah.
If you look at Purdue, they have beaten Kansas and SMU. Okay? So there's 2 good victories for them. They're proving that they can play with people, but can they beat them regularly? But they can play. So I don't think it's too far-fetched to think that Purdue wouldn't beat Texas A&M.
I think that's fair. I think
me a
Purdue's
second.
winning that one. I'm not sure that I agree with Danny that the SEC is.
I think at this point you could make the argument that the ACC is stronger than the Big Ten, but the SEC, I don't know about that.
Well, if we can go back, if you look at what we were talking about, Texas A&M, Purdue, Texas A&M lost to SMU 3 straight.
Gotta love that sport logic where I beat you and you beat them, so I'm gonna beat you.
If
Well,
A
we
is
know
better
that's
than
not-
B and B is better than C, then A is better than C.
But that, I think, is the point we're making, is that once you get that past 2, anybody can beat anybody.
That's true.
And the thing for me is, like, if you're not in that legit conversation for a conference title or a national championship, then what are we doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who are your top 5 for the Big Ten?
Nebraska, Wisconsin. I think that
I hate that. Okay, Wisconsin fans are gonna hate me. Earlier at the beginning of the season, I was like, Wisconsin is just not it. They're gonna be so much worse. They've taken such a dip. And I kind of hate that it's still like Nebraska, Wisconsin at the top. Not because I hate Wisconsin, but because I'm like, okay, here we are.
But I went
I
back and
definitely
watched
think
their
that-
podcast from that, and we all said the same thing. It wasn't just unique to you. We all said the same
Fair,
thing.
fair.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Wisconsin took a step back, for sure. They're not the same team as they were last year.
I don't think many are. I feel like the overall level of the NCAA has kind of taken a decline. That's a hot take for you.
That's another conversation.
That's a hot take.
You have many athletes who were able to play more years who have left,
Yes.
and there is a bit of a vacuum in the NCAA right now with those players leaving. So, I mean, it's not a hot take in my opinion. I would agree that the level has dropped a little bit because you had players who could play 5 years, who could play 6 years for whatever reason. And those 2 years make a huge difference. So I don't think that's necessarily a hot take. I am curious to see if Mimi Collier continues to have the season that she has already had. I don't have any reason to think that it won't happen, but she still has to do it because right now they are relying heavily on her to score points and to do those. So if she gets figured out or has some off matches, I think they're number 2, but I don't think they're securely number 2.
They can be beat.
I'm
No
sticking
doubt,
with
but
my
right
top
now,
with a top
what I've
3.
seen, what I've seen in the last couple weeks when I've watched, I've been impressed by her ability to score. And Grace Egan, before she got injured, was doing a very good job. She got hurt, and they brought in this young girl, freshman named Maddie Quest, who's doing a good job. Booth is still putting up a good block, and they're using her more. They're doing what they have to do with the pieces they do. And I think that's what I just alluded to a few minutes ago is you look at what you have and you do what you can with the pieces you have.
Wisconsin's not nearly as physical as they used to be, but they're still more physical than most teams. And I think on any given night, that goes a long way. Like if you think about matching up against the Purdue, it's a long night for Purdue, given the size difference with Wisconsin. And that gives them the edge. Purdue has to play at 90-95% of their capability to overcome that. Wisconsin can play at 80-85 because they're going to be able to score some of those points just because they're a little more athletic. So that's always kind of the interesting give or take when you have athletes of different calibers on different teams.
Well, that comes down to the same thing we were talking about a few minutes ago about Wisconsin have Collier, Texas A&M have Lednicki, and it's basically what do you have around you that's going to make the difference.
Yeah, I know I was just making fun of Wisconsin a little bit. I do have to give them credit. Their identity for the last 6-7 years have been just blocking machines, really big, physical, and the fact that they've maintained success while having to completely rework what they're about, I think they deserve credit for that. Kelly Sheffield deserves credit for that.
Furbringer deserves credit. She has been good.
They do deserve
Hats off to
props
Kelly
for how they've evolved. But I'm going to put my top 3 as Nebraska, Wisconsin, Purdue. And then after that, no idea.
I mean, Minnesota lost.
Minnesota, I'm still, like, I was not a Minnesota fan last year, and I'm still not a Minnesota fan. And they've had some injuries again. So, yeah, no.
Do we think Michigan State is going to keep upsetting teams?
No.
No.
Hard no. Okay.
Do we think Indiana's still going to keep upsetting teams?
More likely, I think.
I'm looking forward to seeing them. Actually.
Yeah, I'm like, now I need to tune in and pay closer attention.
All right, so let's move on to the ACC, which might be the most interesting conference. I don't think you still have top teams, but you don't have quite as much separation in this conference as you do in the previous 2 that we've talked about, in my opinion. So I'm very curious to hear what your guys' thoughts are about the top teams in the ACC.
Pitt, Stanford, Louisville.
You're putting Stanford above Louisville?
Yep, I am.
So I feel like the contenders or people who are in the discussion for me are Pitt, Stanford, Louisville, SMU. Maybe you could throw in a Miami.
Maybe a North Carolina, maybe.
Maybe a North Carolina. But when I'm looking at top 3, I mean, SMU is always like in the discussion for top 10 or whatever, but I just don't think that they are at the level of the Pitt, Stanford, Louisville. I haven't loved what I've seen from Louisville this year. I think they're good. When you can't set Kara Cressy, though, the wheels fall off. So as soon as that pass makes the middle not good to run, as soon as Cressy gets to the back row, they just bleed out on the court. That is a really tough position to be in. So I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to do Pitt, then Stanford, then Louisville. The young athletes for Stanford have been like quite good.
I'm going to take a flyer here. I think Stanford's going to win this conference this year. I think they're young. I think they're hungry. I think they're well coached. Pitt's been here. I equate Pitt, and for those of you who know I'm a hockey fan, I think they're the Leafs. They know they're going to make the playoffs.
And then they're going to just like blow it right away.
And I think it's hard to stay motivated. I can see Pitt dropping one or two matches to a middle-ranked team where Babcock has an off night or is a little bit banged up. And I don't think they have a ton of depth on that team.
Well, that's the thing with Pitt, is if Olivia Babcock is not good, they are a completely different team. It's the same thing that we've talked about with Penn State, with Texas A&M. Like, these three good opposites for these programs, the structure of the team around them is very similar, which is scary.
Yeah, I just don't see somebody else coming up if Babcock doesn't play all of the games. I don't think there's a ton around her. No, they're obviously not bad players. They have good players around her, but who's going to score points? It's hard to be at the top. Everyone wants to knock off Pitt because of the success they've had. They need to be incredibly mentally tough to manage a season and the expectation where everybody is gunning for you. And on the flip side, Stanford's young. Those kids don't know any different. There's no pressure on them. There's no expectations. I mean, there's expectations because you're playing for Stanford, but in terms of, where that team has been, and I think that can be huge. I think they're going to roll. I think they're going to have a ton of fun. And when they play, my money's on Stanford.
I look at Pitt's situation very similar to what you guys are saying with, I see Babcock, Kennedy, Martin. Okay. What I see is two very good middles for Pitt, a better passing team than Pitt. And if you can get those middles, no, better than Penn State, yes. Pitt has better middles than Penn State.
And better passing.
But they pass better than Penn State. If you can get them involved, that opens up things for the other side a little bit more. I do think, they don't have, like, Selman's okay. She's not proven herself yet, but she can be physical enough. But I think they can be the second left side probably right now better than Penn State's second left side. So I think there's a little more there. Stanford's always good. Stanford's never bad. They're Stanford.
Get that West Coast Ivy League education, kids. I'm banking on the fact that Olivia Babcock is going to show up when necessary. So that's why I have Pitt as number one.
But what is your definition of necessary?
Score all the points, duh.
Yeah, but is she going to show up against Miami? Is she going to show up against Louisville, against SMU?
The left sides for Pitt, they're capable. They're good players. If the left sides falter, is Olivia Babcock going to be able to carry the load? That's what I mean when necessary. Because she does draw enough attention that the left sides for Pitt have been able to kind of find their rhythm, work their way into it, and start to establish their own identity. But if not, and then now defenses are focusing more on the left sides, what's going to happen? That's what I mean as far as can the outside core balance each other enough?
I think that Olivia Babcock will always be able to pick up the slack if the left sides are struggling. But
you were the one who picked Stanford to win.
No, but my bigger question is that team capable of picking up the slack when Olivia is struggling? They've never had to. What happens if she is injured or she has an off night and all of a sudden everybody's looking around going, well, who's going to score points because it's always Olivia? I'm curious to see what happens in that situation.
That's the point. I don't think that that's going to happen when they play Stanford or when they play Miami. I don't think that's going to happen.
Maybe it'll happen against
I'm giving her a lot of credit.
One thing I liked about Babcock recently, she's playing some pretty good defense too.
Oh yeah.
She's improved defensively.
Yeah, she's picking up balls. I like that. She digs her nose in and away she goes. I like that.
The three of us love a 6 rotation right side.
Let's look at ACC. Yes or no, top 10 ACC teams better than the top 10 Big Ten teams?
I'm going to say across the board, yes. You have Pitt. When we were going through this at the beginning, I was able to name 6 decent contenders. I'm not sure that I felt like I could do that with the Big Ten.
When you look at Miami, Stanford, North Carolina, Louisville, Pitt, SMU, there's 6 teams right there that are pretty competitive and can play.
And I go back and I'm using Purdue as the example because I think they're a similar style team that's very well coached. Like, I don't think they beat Pitt, Stanford, or Louisville. And so when I start to look at, do they beat Miami? I don't know. Do they beat SMU? I don't think so. Right? And you kind of look down that list and compare, I would consider Big Ten 3 to ACC 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
the
remember-
ACC is better.
Remember, and I'm not saying this is third against Purdue beat SMU 3-1.
Fair.
Yeah.
But then, of course, if we're playing first against first, second against second, third against third, it's probably not that. I would not dispute that.
It's an interesting thought experiment.
So
'Cause
as
it's
of right
just-
now, we're thinking ACC is strongest conference.
I think so.
they're pretty good.
We've got one conference left to discuss in the Big 12.
This conference,
This one's an interesting conference now. Here we go.
this to me is the Spaghetti Bowl conference.
What is that?
You throw the spaghetti
Exactly.
against the wall and you have no idea
Oh
what's
my
going to stick. When I look at
We've
this,
got Colorado currently leading the conference. Wow.
I feel like on any given night, any of these teams could beat another one, but they could all lose against unranked teams, and I wouldn't bat an eye.
I think that's fair. I have high expectations for a couple teams, but I understand what you're saying.
Arizona State, I think, is probably the pace car in this conference.
I would agree with that.
But then you look at, who are you putting next? Kansas, TCU, BYU, all of them have
Baylor.
lost. All of them have lost to unranked teams, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, Colorado, first of all, have no signature wins in my mind. I don't consider BYU the way they're going in Utah as a signature win.
No, their trajectory is definitely down.
They've lost to Colorado State 2 times already in preseason play, 3-0 and 3-1. So I'm not sure that 4-0 playing in that conference, and the best teams you have played are BYU and Utah, and you beat them. But when you look at where BYU and Utah are right now, they're not lighting anybody up.
But where do you
That's
think
for sure.
BYU is going to end the season?
Remember, I picked them as one of my top 3 in August.
Well, that's my point.
Where do I think they're
BYU
going to
is
end
looking-
up? 6th, 5th, 6th, 7th, somewhere around there. 7th, 6th.
Well,
I don't know.
I don't think any of us had TCU on our radars either, though, in August.
No.
So for me, my top teams, the way that I think it's going to shake out for Big 12 is Arizona State, TCU. I'm gonna go with Kansas.
Oh, you stole mine. That was what I was going to pick. Arizona State, TCU, Kansas. And I'm actually not convinced that TCU doesn't end up beating Arizona State.
Yeah, maybe.
I went TCU, Arizona State, Kansas.
Okay, we all have the same top 3.
I like Kansas, but you know why I like Kansas? They have more losses, but they've played one heck of a schedule.
But that is why I have them on the list. Sure, Baylor's 4-1 right now. Kansas's schedule has been way tougher, I think.
Yeah.
Overall, even in the preseason. So they are like battle tested against strong teams.
But I think this conference, I don't think anybody's going to go unbeaten. I think the top team is going to have 3 or 4 losses. Like, I think you're going to see a roll the dice results in this conference all season long. When I watch the teams from this conference, there's just a lack of consistency from night to night. You watch the passing breakdown, you watch hitters have meltdowns where they're hitting negative, you watch, errors just happening across the board. There's inconsistent volleyball, and then there's some great matches where it's all just clicking. It'll be who can put a consistent performance on the floor for conference play that's going to win, in my opinion.
I look at this and I agree with you, Adam, in that if you're a fan and you want to go watch some competitive volleyball, this may be the conference, because you could have a great match every time they step on the floor. This is the conference that I see is the most competitive conference of all that'll have nobody in the Final Four and maybe nobody in the Final 8, but they will be competitive.
That's another hot take for you guys today. Big 12, most competitive conference with no one in the Final Four or Final 8. Our group analysis: best conference, strongest conference, ACC, most competitive conference top to bottom within their own conference, Big 12, with SEC and Big 10 having the powerhouses at the very top and then kind of diluting down from there. So what conferences do we think are going to be represented in the Final Four? If we have our crystal ball right now, who do we think? Preliminary thoughts, Who are the final four teams?
I mean, depending on what the rankings go in, I would say my Final Four would be Texas, Nebraska, Kentucky, Pitt.
Not disagreeing with you. I think those are the four best teams of the country right now. If any one of them's going to drop out, I think Pitt could be the one that drops out.
I could see if Louisville and Pitt had to play in the quarterfinals, that would be a potential matchup where Pitt could lose.
What about Stanford? You were so high on Stanford.
I do, but they're young. Like, I think they're going to have a really good season, but I think you have to learn how to win in big moments. And so I can see them running into a Nebraska or a Texas in the quarterfinals, and they're not there yet.
Another team that I think could possibly sneak in depending on the matchups, and I think that has a lot to do with what's going to happen here. Wisconsin could sneak in if they continue and Collier continues the way she is. And I know there's a lot of ifs going on right now. How do I want to put that? At the end of the day, the teams that are playing the best at the end of the season will probably find a way, similar to what Penn State did on their run last year.
I'm not sure Wisconsin is a Final Four caliber, though.
I'm not sure either, but I think there's teams there like Pitt that could be upset depending on what's going on. If Babcock happens to have a bad match, like Adam said, that's huge on them.
I'm Nebraska, Texas for sure.
Yeah.
My instinct is to say Kentucky, Pitt.
Could I see Louisville and Pitt going at it in a quarterfinal match? Yes, if they can keep getting Cressy the ball. Could I see Wisconsin and Kentucky going at it and Wisconsin blocking really well and making life difficult? I could see that. If we're talking about the top 8, I think Wisconsin's there. I think that Stanford is there. I think that Louisville is there. That last spot, very draw dependent, I would say. I mean, those would be the teams that I think are at the top right now.
Could be a Big 12 team just to spite me.
Yeah, exactly. The Big 12 is going to sneak in and have 2 teams in the Final 8 just to be like, heh.
That's our conference analysis going into the second half of NCAA college volleyball. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of opinions about what we've said. We want to hear them. Post them on YouTube, send them in on Instagram. We love having the conversations. We love knowing what you guys think about your teams, because obviously you're in that day in and day out. And again, send us questions. We love talking about them. We'll see a few that come up here comparing different teams. We'll often pick matches that we watch for fun based off some of the comments so that we can talk about them. So if you have something burning that you want discussed here, let us know and we'll do our best to get to it.
Okay, it is time for listener questions. Question number 1. Would you rather have a middle that can lead the blocking system very well and have good synergy with the defense, or a middle that has an Olivia Babcock level attack?
Olivia Babcock level attack.
What is your take? This is actually a very interesting question.
Yeah, I'm thinking about team composition, and I don't think you generate a ton of points in the middle in general. I think if your block has holes in it, the defense becomes harder, and transition in the women's game is really important. There aren't a ton of teams that get lots of first ball kills. I think I would go defensive.
I look at it this way. If you're that good that you can dominate offensively, I can teach you to block.
That's not what the question is, though.
There's a lot of middles out there that are great blockers and can't score points.
That I don't disagree with you with.
No, but you have to pick one or the other. So my thing
I'll
is...
take the offense and I'll teach you the rest.
No, that's not the question. You get one or the other.
No, but okay, so I'm taking the offensive one, knowing I can teach her to block. I'm not saying I'm answering one. I'm taking the great attack.
And I'll develop the other one, so I have both. So for me, the women's game is like pretty fast. If you have a powerhouse offensive middle, the one-on-ones that your outsides are going to get with the speed of the offense, you're going to see a lot more first ball kills. So that is why I'm a proponent for the offense. But then blocking, you're not always in control. So you can be a great blocker, but another team's scheme and system can best you. An offensive middle A will score points like crazy when they're set, but when they're not set, the openings that they're creating for everybody else on the court is so good.
See, I think about it where, yes, you want to own the middle of the court and you want to hold the block. I can do that with the left side coming out of the pipe. I can mitigate that with a left side, and I can still own the middle of the court, and my middles are getting touches and slowdowns, and I'm cutting off the court that my defenders need to play, and I can move my libero in, and I'm getting more transition attacks, and I'm making life difficult on other hitters. I think if you have an elite level blocking middle, it just lets everything else settle into place. We'll find the offense on the pins.
Okay, we have a disagreement. People write in and let us
do.
know what you think.
Yes, we do.
Okay, question 2. I'm curious what you guys believe is the reason that players outside of the U.S. struggle to assimilate to the NCAA in the same way that the college players struggle to assimilate to pro play or the international game. So we talk a lot about how detrimental the NCAA development can be to certain players' pro careers, but why is it that players that come from pro leagues abroad don't always have a walk in the park in the NCAA? So we saw Adriano struggle. We see Marina Markova, who didn't do a ton at Florida, crushing it at Vacaville Bank. It's just players like that. It's like, how are you playing at such a high level internationally or pro in the NCAA? You're not dominating. The Nikolovs are the exception.
Who?
The Nikolovs, the brothers.
I look at this and I think because the athletes you're getting from Europe that are coming here, they're not the best athletes. The best athletes in Europe at 18, 19 years old even are playing in the pro level, and they stay there because they're earning money. So you're getting players coming over here that aren't the best players and moving into a system that is not a system they're used to. So that's part of the reason I think it doesn't happen that way. And the American system, I don't think lends itself to going over to Europe to be a great player because of the substitution rules and the way it limits what they can do.
Yeah, but we're seeing Marina Markova, who is dominating Champions League and the Turkish League with Vacaville Bank. But when she played for Florida, wasn't doing much. Adriano, like, yeah, she's not the best of the best, but she was still playing like A2 Italy, which is a higher level than we're seeing in the NCAA. And it's just like, she was hitting under 100 up until recently on the season.
I think a lot of it has to do with setting. So think about how many setters you have in the NCAA. You're not going to be super consistent. You're going to have a big variety of where the ball goes, what you're trying to do offensively. Whereas if you're playing pro, you generally, on the better teams, have older setters who understand what they're trying to do. It's a position that is a little more skilled and a little more developed. We looked at and we talked about with Adriano, Nebraska wants to run a super fast offense. She's used to hitting higher sets. And I think it took Bergen Riley a little bit of time to find setting speed with setting height for her and when to use her and those kind of things. And setting and libero, I think, they're mature positions. You need to play them a little bit longer to really settle in and understand how to give each hitter their own set and how to run that. And so with younger, inexperienced setters, I think the transition is different because when you're playing for Vacaville Bank, when you're playing in Italy, those setters are putting the ball on a tee for you most of the time. You know where the ball's going to be. So I think there's an adjustment period there. And I also think culturally for some of these kids coming over, being in more of a professional setting and then having to do school and having to do all of these other things, I think it just takes a little bit of time.
Question 3. Why do you think the Ivy League conference is so uncompetitive? Is it because they don't offer athletic scholarships? This person contributed more, saying, I know club volleyball is very expensive. The majority of athletes who play club are wealthy, but the Ivy Leagues offer financial aid for people who maybe can't afford to go there. They're going to get an incredible education and be able to be set up for a job after. Like, why are the really good players not going to the Ivy League?
I think part of the problem is that, number one, you have to get into the school. That's one of the things. That's going to limit who you get. I think most players that are playing at a high club level want to have an opportunity to go to the NCAA tournament and have a chance to potentially do well at the NCAA tournament.
Mhm.
And most people know that if I go to an Ivy League, I might be the best player by a long shot if I'm one of the top recruits in the country, but I will never have a chance to win. And I think that has a lot to do with it. It's like the Stanford thing, though. Stanford being who they are, we could argue that, but not everybody can go to Stanford, but
Yeah, I
because of the
think
history.
there's a pool of athletes available issue, but then there's also a priority issue. The Ivy Leagues, they don't put the same value on winning. They still want to win, don't get me wrong, but it's not the same as playing
But
for
like the
Nebraska.
coaches aren't getting fired if they have
Yes.
a bad season.
Exactly.
Like,
The expectations in those programs just aren't the same as the top programs across the country.
yeah, I think like you guys were saying, the academic standards, yes, a lot of really good athletes are strong academically, but not necessarily the standard that is expected for an Ivy League education. So I think, as you were saying, the pool of athletes that are even available to get in and be admitted to an Ivy League school is very small. What current NCAA outside hitters do you think have the potential for success internationally and for an international club career? This person said they think Harper Murray, Elia Rubin, and Tori Stafford are the only ones that come to mind.
Really? Wow.
I might not make any
Babcock?
friends, but I don't think Harper Murray should be on the list. I don't think her style of play and her offensive ability lends itself to the level we're looking at for international play and top pro career.
Yeah, are we talking top 6 teams in Italy, national team, or just playing pro somewhere?
No, we're talking like national team career and top international club career.
Can I dial this back a bit? I remember back in August, I thought Murray against Kentucky played the best game I've seen her play at Kentucky. That she would have a chance if she continued that to be a player of the year. I haven't seen that continue. It's got me concerned going forward. So I agree with you, Sarah. If her style of play, especially attacking against a double block, which you'll see a huge amount when you go to the pro level in Europe, if you can't start to score against that double block and find ways to score, you're going to struggle. And I think Harper Murray has now gone back, and the double block still creates problems. And it only gets worse when you go against the European block if you play at the top levels, facing the defenses you face behind that block. Yeah. I'm not sold, but I said early, a few minutes ago, Babcock, she's got the goods.
I would say her, yes, but like outsides, not opposites.
Oh,
and
left
honestly,
side you're talking?
I am having a hard time thinking of an outside. I like Tori Stafford a lot. I don't know if I could even put Elia Rubin in the. I'm having a hard time thinking of outsides right now.
I think there are very few P1 outsides in NCAA right now. Honestly, an Eva Hudson comes.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think top. If you had to pick 1, 2, and 3 outsides who have the best chance, do I think she's going to go play for Vacant Bank? No. But if we're talking about P1 outside hitters who have the best chance out of the crop of outsides right now, I think Eva Hudson's on the list. I think Brooklyn DeLay could potentially be on that list.
Well, if you're doing that, then yeah, Tori Stafford's in the conversation. I think her offensive prowess is better than Harper Murray's.
Yeah.
If we look at the outsides who have had strong international careers, we're talking like a Jordan Larson. I'm not seeing any Jordan Larsons floating around the NCAA right now. We're talking like a Kim Hill, which, yes, she surprised a lot of people coming out of Pepperdine, didn't have like a great or an illustrious college career.
Well, I mean, case in point, look at Merzik's not playing anywhere, and she was better than all of them.
Well, Sarah Franklin went to Italy, so if we're talking Sarah Franklin, like maybe Mimi Collier's in the conversation, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think there's any shoo-ins, but I think there's a couple athletes who, given a little bit more time and a little bit more development, thing is you need a more rounded game.
You need a well-rounded game, and when I look at the crop of athletes in the NCAA right now playing outside, I would say maybe the only one that I can see have an international career is maybe Tori Stafford.
I think Harper Murray would be a passing sub, like a third left side on a good team. I think she could fit into that role. I don't think she has the ability to score consistently at that level.
I do like Collier. I have to admit, I've watched her, what I've seen of her so far this year, I do like Collier. I think Collier's got some game on her, and I like that. She can do a lot of good things. Stafford, I'm higher on Collier than I am on Stafford right now, to be honest with you. I do like Eva Hudson. Maybe a little underside, but she's got game. She's got a lot of game on.
But is she going to be a national team outside? Is she going to go play
I think she'll be
for
a
a top Turkish team?
I think she'd be a B team, a US B team left side.
Let's remember, you got to be able to pass and play defense too.
Yeah.
So there's that other component being a left side. At the pro level, nobody's hiding you.
No.
Yeah.
You either can or you can't. And it's a full game you got to be able to play. And if you can't play it, you don't play.
But that's the thing. Scoring in the NCAA, which people who are high on Harper Murray, so upset that I was like, absolutely not. Scoring at the NCAA is not the same as scoring internationally or for a top pro team. And as you said, she doesn't score well against a double block. That doesn't bode well for a top pro career.
I agree.
So I don't know. It's hard. There's so many parts of the game that have to be considered. I loved this question.
Yeah.
I think people look at this when we talk about Harper Murray, maybe being antsy Nebraska and everything like that, but that's not the case at all. The question was about a player, and this has nothing to do with the team. It just has to do with the ability of the player to go to the next level and be a competitive player at that level. Simple as that.
Some people are great college athletes, and that's it.
Christian
Happens to a lot.
Laettner. Everybody. Do you remember Duke basketball? Everyone thought Christian Laettner was going to be everything in the NCAA. He was not.
Okay, hold on a second. Who was the left side for Nebraska that never made it?
Michaela Fecki.
Yes, I want to talk case in point.
Yeah, Michaela Fecki. That is a great example. She was an outstanding college player and lasted maybe 1 year pro.
It's a different game.
Yeah. We've got 2 questions left. For all our Nebraska, Texas fans, this is for you. Many people picked Texas this week as the #1 team over Nebraska, in large part because Texas has gotten better over the preseason, whereas Nebraska has remained consistent and even had to deal with some lineup adjustments and kinks, getting the libero, getting their middles more involved. What are your takes?
I don't get that. Nebraska went in #1, have had some tough matches and come through and continue to be #1. I know that people will look at a situation, because I was thinking about this before this. If you remember when they played Michigan, Michigan lost the first game 25-22. And then Nebraska steamrolled them. And people are looking at that, well, Michigan pushed them. Well, you have to understand, every team that plays Nebraska comes out sky high with that adrenaline flowing. And I've seen this so many times that you come out and you're going to take down the giant. And yes, you're pushing them. And then you have that dreaded break between game 1 and 2 when everything comes back to earth and all of a sudden they beat the snot out of you. No, Nebraska's #1 right now until somebody can beat them. Period.
I mean, I have two thoughts on that question. One is, you can't fault a team for being consistent. That's not their fault. That they don't have a ton of room.
And the fact that they maintained consistency while tweaking things, like that says a lot.
Right. But I do think they are getting better. Look at their right side. Mm-hmm. She's finding a rhythm. They're making adjustments to their game. Rebecca Alec is getting better. They have a new coach. They're getting new systems in place. They're solidifying things. They're making changes. They're getting better. You don't see the changes as blatantly because they start from such a high level. But I don't think you can fault somebody for being consistent. Texas also has several very young players on their roster getting game time. Of course you're going to see improvement. You have jumped levels. These are great athletes, but you have to learn the grind of the NCAA. You have to learn how to take care of your body and do those things and mentally prepare, and how do you respond for bad games. Of course you're going to see those things, and it's expected with young athletes. And because of the age of the roster of Texas, that's not surprising in the least. Now, if Nebraska falters and loses a game, Texas deserves to be number one if they don't. But until Nebraska shows otherwise, I think they deserve to stay in that ranking, because coming into the season, Texas had a bunch of unknowns on their roster. They've proven those things to be non-issues, but without a head-to-head, I don't think the ranking changes.
Exactly.
I agree. No notes. I agree with both comments. Our last question of the day. Position by position, who wins the head-to-head, Nebraska or Texas?
Oof.
So, yeah, position by position, let's go through that. And then part 2 of that question is, if the teams were to play today, who wins?
Where are they playing?
Neutral location.
I'm still going with Nebraska. I just find that they're the most rounded team. And I think what sets them apart from every other team in the country that I've seen play so far is they dig everything. Everything. I'm a very, very strong believer that if you can play defense, you always give your chance to
Defense wins championships, baby.
Oh.
And yet you pick the offensive middle.
Yep.
For the question.
Oh.
Because I've got somebody back there digging the ball.
Okay, so if we're looking head-to-head.
Yeah, let's go head-to-head, because I
think
find this fascinating.
Nebraska wins the setting battle. Everyone knows how I feel about Ellis Wendell.
I agree.
Agreed.
I think Nebraska dominates the middle,
I agree.
both positions,
I
From
agree.
a blocking and attacking standpoint.
100%. Right side, Kari Spears versus Adriano.
Right now, I would give the edge to the Texas right side.
Yeah.
The edge. But I agree with Adam. I see Adriano improving. Every time I see them play, she's gotten better.
Yeah.
But I would give the edge to Texas right side. They're both freshmen, and I would give her the edge right now.
I think that the Texas right side has had a better season. The one thing I am curious about, Adriano having played pro, has she learned to deal with pressure a little bit better than Spears has down the road? I've loved Spears. I think she's done a fantastic job. That is the one question mark in my mind of, I want to see Spears in some of those pressure matches, and then does Adriano's experience in that environment help her in that situation as we get closer to tournament play? But for now, I give the edge to Spears as well.
Left sides, we've got Tori Stafford and Vanderwall for Texas, and then Harper Murray and a combination of Landfair and Sigler for Nebraska.
I actually really like Sigler. I think she's done a really good job coming in the role that she's been given in terms of playing
agree.
back row. I think overall I give the edge to Texas. I really like Vanderwall. I think
Vanderwall beats out Landfair, and honestly, I think Stafford beats out Harper Murray.
I agree. I think they're better offensively. I think they're more dynamic as a pair. You give the team passing to Nebraska, but that's not just on the left sides.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the toss-up. But I think from a physical and offensive standpoint, I give the nod to Texas.
So at the end of the day, I think what determines what happens at the end here is the defense.
Well, because we see setter middles better for Nebraska, outsides better for Texas. Liberos, honestly, I think the Nebraska liberos are better. I think Mouch is a better passer, Choboy is a better defender, so as a combo. But I think having the setter middle connection better with the other ones close, it just opens things up, and the Nebraska defensive system kind of pushes them over the edge.
I think Nebraska's pass and serve give them the edge in a match. I think there's a little bit of inexperience and weaknesses on the passing side that could be exploited in Texas. I think that Nebraska will find a way to do that. That would be the difference for me.
Even though we've laid out our arguments here, people are going to say we're just Nebraska homers, and that's why we picked them.
Listen, if
No.
Texas comes out and their 3 outside hitters all have games, they will beat Nebraska. But I think Nebraska edges them 6-4. They played 10 times this year. With some experience, I think that those numbers change.
We may get our wish in the NCAA final, hopefully, because that would be a hell of a match. But last time that happened, we thought it was going to be a hell of a match, and
It was not.
it was a destruction.
Oof.
So
That was bad.
yeah.
But I really liked the questions this week.
Outstanding.
Really good. Keep them coming. We know you guys have a lot that you're asking, that you're thinking about, so be sure to reach out to us. But I really enjoy them this week. Thanks.
Thanks a lot for having me. I really have a lot of fun when I do this, and anytime you want me to be a guest again, just call on me and I'll be there.
Let the people do the decision making. Let us know in the comments. We know that you wanted Paul to come back, so we obeyed your wishes. You want him to come back for another one, maybe later in the NCAA season, to see how our predictions ended up. I enjoy having you.
It's always a lot of fun. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, guys.
Well, that was quite the episode. We appreciate Paul coming out and giving his opinion. I know that he's an avid NCAA volleyball follower and always has a lot of opinions, so always great to have him out here, and we will again. If we look forward to this week, there are some very good matches coming up that we think you guys should pay attention to. So on our radar for the week, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, Kentucky versus Texas A&M. And this could really play out for the standings in the conference. So
Just like we were discussing.
stay tuned for that one. Wednesday also at 10 p.m. Eastern, we have Arizona State versus Baylor in the Roll the Dice Conference, where anybody can win on any given night. So pay attention to that one. We'll see if Baylor can right the ship, because they had a couple bad losses this week. Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, we have Pitt versus Miami, the undefeated battle in the conference. So we will see if Miami can keep it rolling, or if Babcock will show up and put an end to the Miami reign in conference play. And then finally, Sunday at 1 p.m., we have Nebraska versus Purdue. Now, Purdue has been rolling. They've been beating some teams. I don't think they're going to beat Nebraska, but I'm curious to see. This is a character match for me. Let's see what they're made of. Let's see how their hitters come out and play against such a great defense. And so I think that one's going to be worthwhile to pay attention to.
That concludes this week's episode of Volley Talk. There's always something shaking in the volleyball world, and we hope you enjoyed this little fix. Be sure to follow the show so you don't miss any updates, and we'd be so grateful if you'd leave us a 5-star review. You can also find us on Instagram at volleytalk_podcast. If you have a topic you'd like us to discuss, reach out to us on Instagram or at info@sarahpavin.com. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll be back next week.